God is good, and launch day has passed for Amazon's New World MMO, and today I'm going to give my full first impressions from digging into the game, both solo and playing in a group. Please keep in mind, this recording was made day 2 of the launch of New World, the MMORPG, and I am only really going to be diving into the early parts of the game, as that is all I can really have an impression or opinion on at this time. We'll talk the launch itself, the graphics, the zones, the various gameplay loops, the combat, the harvesting and crafting, and so much more. Before we begin, I want to give a major shout out to the members of Napalm, the sponsors of this channel. I could not do this without you. Thanks to your monthly membership, I'm able to keep this channel running, covering MMOs, RPGs, and of course, puppets. If you are interested in becoming a member of this channel with exclusive perks, please click the join button down below for a list of options. And a very special shout out to the Lords of Napalm, Bounty Code, We Toke Bitcoins, and Jared Woodhouse. Thank you for your highest tier membership. First, let's talk about how launch day went. Queue times were way up and way up for some servers, especially such as the US East Morrow server, for example, saw spikes of 15,000 people in the queue. Amazon reacted very quickly, however, with several solutions, obviously by slamming down tons of new servers, as well as offering everyone a free transfer for the next 2 weeks to get on servers with their friends as things calm down. They promised to increase the amount of people allowed on each server soon, as right now each server can only hold 2,000 people. On top of that, when you make a character, after a very short introduction, you are slapped into a random area of 3 different zones. And I'm calling them zones loosely here, I'll get to that in a minute. I assume this is based off of how crowded each area is. Once in, the game ran very smooth, very little issues, and solid servers. For a launch day, because I've seen almost every launch in MMO history, this was a win, and a very well done by Amazon Game Studios. Now, I want to talk about how New World's strategy here for just a minute. By limiting servers to smaller sizes, 2,000 for example, for launch, and then opening them up for larger crowds a week or 2 or 3 later, they are throttling the servers, allowing the rush to take place with less issues server side, meaning less crashes and keyboard breaking, rage-inducing happenings that old school MMO players know far too well. Also, by having random spawns of your toon out of 3 different places on each server, they are also decreasing the strain on the server so that everyone has a better experience. It may suck to have to run across a very large zone through creatures very scary for your level 1 toon, but it beats everyone having a crappy time as soon as they log in. I am in no way defending just how bad it sucks to sit in a queue, but if you were flexible enough to understand that you can transfer later for free and you think about the larger picture, it's pretty darn smart. On top of that, New World has had over 500,000 concurrent players at one point on Steam on launch day, according to sources, which is an incredible amount to juggle and deal with at the launch of an MMORPG. So launch day went pretty darn well in my opinion, and that's coming from a guy who's seen a lot of pretty bad launches and almost always is pretty darn bad. Now, on to other topics. Let's talk about the beginning experiences. So New World holds your hand some, but not so bad that you feel like a mindless zombie. New World is an open world, it's a sandbox type environment, and although it certainly walks you through the various activities, it's pretty fast, and if you aren't paying attention, I mean, you will find yourself Googling anyway. So overall, the mechanics make sense and they work generally how you would expect them to. The very first thing you probably already noticed from just watching this video, which barely even does it justice, is the graphics look stunning. You will find yourself stopping and looking around at the massive draw distance and attention to detail on the world, and it feels great. Ruins in the distance beckoning for you to explore, and as you stretch out into new areas, no zones by the way, even though I call them zones, it's actually all open world, but they're separated by invisible walls on the map, and they call them territories. You will find quite a bit of variety, at least in the early game, and I can only hope that continues as I travel deeper and deeper around this world. Overall, it feels very huge, and it does beg you to explore and find what lurks around. Another first impression that doesn't take long for you to form an opinion on is the combat. It is action-based. Aim your reticle and fire away, or swing away, or thrust away, or whatever your weapon has that you do away. So far, it looks like you unlock 3 abilities through the skill tree for the weapon type. As you use the weapon, you skill it up, and as it levels, you get points to spend for that weapon, which can be a lot of passives. It can also be some active abilities you can put to use, and they all make sense for that weapon type. Now, as you use the weapon, you skill it up, and as it levels, you get points to spend for that weapon, meaning you could theoretically level up multiple weapons so you could do multiple classes on one character. Of course, as should surprise absolutely nobody, unless you're new to the channel, I'm going sword and board, but plan to do a life staff later for some small heals. skills. Blocking uses stamina, and once you're out of stamina, it breaks your block. Blocking isn't the only tactic. You can also evade by dodging or rolling away, which is better for some scenarios, but also, of course, uses stamina. You have your attack and your heavy attack and combos that are just naturally tied to swinging along with your 3 other abilities. Now, I had fun with the combat and found it interesting enough to keep me invested so far, but I do worry for hundreds or even thousands of hours deep if the small amount of options will even hold up, but that's for another time. For now, I enjoy it. The combat is based heavily on being reactive, so if you are experiencing lag or slowdown, it will become a nightmare, I would have to assume. Thankfully, the game is running great so far, server side from all that I played, but I did notice some slowdown when I turned on recording software, which is shocking due to the beefy rig I'm running on. Overall though, I do worry that 3 active abilities is too low, and this could become tiresome over time, and I truly hope they expand this very soon. From what it has though, it does feel good, and that's kind of the theme of New World. Everything feels really good, and I am really enjoying the combat so far. And please keep in mind, I'm a tab target lover, and rarely do I enjoy action combat, but this feels like a real action combat, whereas others such as Elder Scrolls Online, for example, feel like they're trying to be action combat and come close to the mark, whereas New World is just newer and with newer tech, and it feels 100% like you are in control. When you take a hit, you know it's your fault. When you land that perfect combo, you know you're awesome. Now, while we're talking about combat, I have to say that so far, the variety of mobs to beat down on seem really small for an MMO. I'm really hoping that this changes as I expand out into new areas, but I explored the first 3 zones, and although I did see a decent amount of creatures from turkeys to elk to wolves, various undead types, skeletons, ghosts, boars, and bears, it does so far feel a little limited. And it's a real freaking shame because the environments are so awesome to explore that with a bit more variety, this would have absolutely been killer. From the mobs they do have, they look great, and learning how they behave and how to react is a lot of fun and feels very intuitive. I'm especially a fan of how the UI is minimal and you actually pay 100% attention to what is happening on the screen instead of staring at the UI while fighting the creatures of New World. One complaint I had about the game in earlier beta tests was that I felt the overall story was a bit weak, and I'm happy to take that back. At least in these first 12 levels, they had me interested in the mystery of the Corrupted and the Azoth and whatever exactly is going on, and the voice acting is top notch. I do have to say that the quest variety will wear you down a bit. It might take you a few times to realize, but not long, and that there just isn't a whole lot of hugely differing quests going on here. Although there is much more than when I tested the game a year ago, I can still see through the curtains of bullcrappery that these are mostly just go there, kill this many, go here, and collect this many. The saving grace is that there are PvP quests, story quests, and those are a lot more fun in my opinion, and then the faction quests, and then also territory type quests for that area or zone. So when you get bored of one, you can swap to another and bounce around, and then you start to see that this is the way Amazon envisioned you to play, and in my opinion, you'll find enough variety to give it a passing grade. But going forward, they really gotta work on this. And that brings me to the zones and the faction system that I think has a lot of potential. Differing factions gaining control of zones and duking it out across the open world, mixed with forts to control and take over, and having the ability to contribute to that as a PvP or PvE or crafter is fantastic, and I think this is the differentiator of this MMO that makes it stand out. Even if you don't enjoy PvP, I'll bet that somehow you get invested into it in some capacity, even if it's simply for influence by running quests in a zone or crafting supplies to help in the effort. It just feels good to help your side. There are 3 different factions to choose from, and they each have their own theme and feel, as well as faction rewards in the form of gear and such. Now, crafting and harvesting is fantastic for me so far. I love chopping down digital trees and seeing them actually fall. I love being out in the wild and hearing the echoes of other chopping trees and mining ore. I can just smell the fresh tree scents in the air. It might be a personal thing or love for old Vanguard, the MMO, but I feel this is the best harvesting I've seen so far. It's super simple, it's addicting, and it just feels so good and so satisfying. Not to mention just how addicting for me personally it is just to go out, load up on wood, crawl my way back to town encumbered, and sell it on the auction house, watching my digital bank account grow. Feels good, man. The crafting itself is done in such a way that doesn't waste your time. You can slide over to as many to make at a time as you would like at that once, and it doesn't penalize you for doing more than just one at a time. As a person who generally doesn't even enjoy crafting, I personally find this intuitive and fun. Hardcore crafters may disagree, but I highly doubt any hardcore gatherers will not absolutely love the gathering aspect. Now let's talk about loot, because let's face it, that's the most important thing, am I right? At first, I thought the itemization was awful, but as I'm getting out there fighting harder mobs, I'm beginning to see some light at the end of the tunnel. I found some cool gear so far with stats that, although nothing groundbreaking, they do feed my addiction. The game is still early, and I'm still in those Twilight early levels, but it seems like it's going to be okay. I only worry about, once again, the variety of graphical options for the gear. It's too early to tell, but being that variety seems to be the overall issue with the other aspects of the game, I am afraid that this may have suffered in the gear department as well, but time will tell. However, and overall, New World is worth the time and investment in my opinion. At $40 US and no subscription fee, and at least at the time of this recording, a non-intrusive cash shop with nothing but some skins, and a world that makes you explore its vastness by not offering mounts so it feels huge. At least they don't offer mounts yet, along with a very responsive and reactive, although fairly limited, combat system, and the open world feeling and sandbox vibes. I have to say that I can't wait to finish this video so I can go play and experience some more, and that's a good sign. For a very long time I've had trouble by day 2 of a new MMO, and at least on day 2 of Amazon's New World, I'm even more excited with the knowledge I have now to go in for another long play session, staying up much too late and getting sucked into the virtual world of Eternum. Rally up MMO lovers, this one is worth your attention. I hope you enjoyed the video today, guys. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. There will be some New World content absolutely on this channel because I'm playing it and enjoying it, but we do also cover other MMORPGs. I specialize in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. That is the MMO I am awaiting oh so patiently for, and other old school games and RPGs, CRPGs, all that kind of thing. So please click the subscribe button, drop me a like and a comment what you think. If you played New World, let me know down below what you think your first impressions of it were, or what you think of what I shared today, and if you are interested in trying it or not, and why. And until next time, my friends, God bless and happy gaming.